Today's conference is a summary of what El Gran Engaño or the Big Deception is about. We are going to talk about the power behind the powers. It might sound a bit ambiguous, but in reality it's quite clear. The hidden power which controls the world's governments, in the dark or from behind. We're going to see that the politicians that we vote for and are elected are usually controlled by these hidden powers, while most people are completely unaware of this. They think that whoever gets the majority of votes will run the country and will make the decisions which best suit the country or their interests. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. We are going to briefly demonstrate it here, but in the Big Deception conferences, you can see with detailed proof that this is not science fiction. It is a reality. Let's start with the hidden symbology behind the $1 bill. Here you can see the back of a $1 bill, where we have different images. We are going to focus in some of them and expose that what appears here has a strange relation with the number 13. If we look at this seal, it is called a seal. We can see a pyramid. The top part, which is slightly separated from the rest, is a triangle that shines light with an eye inside. If we count the levels of the pyramid, there are 13. Why 13? We may wonder. Is it a coincidence? Well, we're going to see today what people in the occultist world believe. We are basically talking about Masonry, Illuminati, and beyond. Number 13, Kabbalistically speaking, means death and resurrection, total change, transformation. Some people even avoid mentioning number 13. They say instead 12 plus 1, which is the equivalent of Messiah. For occultism and Satanism, 13 equals Lucifer or Satan. Did you know that Lucifer is a primogenius name, which means light bearer, and Satan was given after, which means adversary, when he was no longer the light bearer? At the base of the pyramid, there are some Roman numbers, and if we add them up, equals 1776, which is the year of the U.S. Declaration of Independence. But it also happens to be the year the Illuminati were founded by the Jesuits in Bavaria, which is part of Germany. Here we have this famous eye, also known as the all-seeing eye. It appears on the covers of Jacobean texts, which basically were radical French parties during the French Revolution. They were the instigators of the revolution. The symbol of the all-seeing eye, eye of the world's master builder, of the great initiate, as they say in Masonry, used in coats of arms of Masonic loggias all over the world. The Illuminati call it their luminous delta. It is also known as the Eye of Horus in Egyptian mythology. It's the adoration of the sun god. I am particularly interested in you retaining the meaning, the adoration of the sun god, Lucifer's symbol, the light bearer. As you know, in the Christian world, Lucifer is an evil being, correct? For Mason loggias and Illuminati, Lucifer is still the light bearer. Therefore, the role that we normally give Christ as good, they give it to Lucifer. Notice that it's inside the shiny triangle, which means mental enlightenment. As you know, Masonry works in different grades or levels. The higher they go, the more knowledge they receive, the more light or mental enlightenment, according to them. It also represents the Greek letter delta, which means transition. Transition to what? Here we have it. Transition to the sentence that appears under the pyramid. Novus Ordus Seclorum, which means New Order of the Ages, or as it is most commonly known, New World Order. Pay special attention to these three words because politicians worldwide have been talking about them for quite a few years now. You should know that politicians who mention these words are normally part of Masonic logias. They don't say this by accident. They are directed by someone. I suppose you all know Henry Kissinger. He was U.S. Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, and also founding member of the Bilderberg Club. You have probably heard about this club on TV. There are even books about it. Well, this gentleman, with a lot of influence, has been part of the U.S. government for a long time. He was born in Bavaria, Germany. Do you know where the Illuminati were created? He was originally a German Jew. He's quite old now. Well, on this interview that appeared on TV, he said something rather interesting about Obama's presidency. His task would be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It is a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis. This speech that he gave is vital because he links the new world order to the world's crisis. So we can imagine that when they talk about crisis, this has to be something that must happen, and that is the instauration of a new world order. And here we have it once again, the seal with the pyramid. But let's analyze the numbers that appear here with the decimal and sexagesimal systems. We normally use the decimal system, but the Babylonians created the sexagesimal system. We still use the 60-minute clocks based on this system. Well, if we break down the number 1776 with this system, we can subdivide it in a way that we have three primary numbers and then regroup the secondary numbers. The sum of the primary group equals 1110 using the decimal system, while the secondary group using the sexagesimal system equals 666, the infamous 666. Does this number ring a bell? I suppose it does, right? Many things have been said about this number. We will learn its true meaning. 1110 in decimal system equals 666. We can also see here this famous sentence, "In God we trust." Now that we're starting to realize there might be some hidden meaning behind all this, makes us wonder, in which God are they placing their trust? We are going to see more about number 13 and its relation with the Illuminati. Here we have the 13-letter sentence, Annuit Coactis. This is located over the pyramid, which means favors our undertakings, or our undertakings crowned by success. What undertakings are they referring to? To the instauration of a new world order. The eagle on the dollar bill is grabbing an olive branch, which is known as the peace symbol, but it is also the symbol of the Jews. But funny enough, if we count the leaves, there are exactly 13 leaves. In the other claw, it is holding some arrows, which means war power. And how many other? 13 again. Above the eagle, we can see a constellation made up of 13 five-pointed stars. Why? Look what happens if we outline the disposition of these 13 stars. David's star appears, when in reality David never used this symbol. King David the Jew, that is. But let's move on. Let's look also at this other sentence. E pluribus unum, which means out of many one, or one from many. It also has 13 letters. Is it a coincidence? On the shield, we can also count 13 bars. The bars represent the 13 original states that became independent from the British Empire. The US flag has 13 stripes. This was the original flag when the US was formed. As you can see, the 5 pointed stars form a circle over a blue background. Does it remind you of the European Union flag? There were 13 stars that symbolized the ones that signed the Declaration of Independence back in 1776. Here is Mr. George Washington wearing a strange outfit. In other images, he wears a Mason's apron because he was a member of a Masonic logia. Practically all American presidents have been members of Masonic logias. The stars over a blue background represent the new nation in the universe of existing nations. Each star represents a state. There are many more than the 13 initial ones nowadays. If we outline the furthermost stars, they form an hexagon, which is the base for number 6. What do 5-pointed stars represent? Why are they drawn like that? They even appear in the Vitruvian Man, painted by Leonardo da Vinci, which represents man liberated from God's guardianship. But also, an inverted 5-pointed star is known as Mendes' head, and it represents Satan. Let's look at more details about 13s that appear on the $1 bill. If you notice on both the left and the right side, can you see a rattlesnake's tail? On either side, we count 13 rattles. We have all seen this obelisk in Washington, D.C., right? Built to commemorate George Washington. It also happens to stand within a circle. And why? Here is George Washington wearing the Masonic apron. To the right, there is the Capitol. Can you see what's above the Capitol? Can you see an eye that irradiates light once again? Can you see the relation between both images? It's basically the same representation as the $1 bill. Now, if we turn the dollar around, on the front side of the dollar, there is something not so obvious to the naked eye, and it's here. Can you see it now? Here we go. It is an owl. Why is there an owl here? Could it be something meaningless, placed there by whoever designed the dollar bill, and that's it? The owl is the symbol of the all-seeing eye, because it also sees at night, the one that controls everything. If we look at these different symbols, extracted from Saint Etienne's church in Paris, you can see the shining triangle both on the left and the right. The image on the bottom left is from a Masonic logia, and it also shows the shining triangle over a 5-pointed star. And on the bottom right, we realize that New Era symbols, such as Reiki or Tarot, share symbolisms with Masonic logias, although most people are unaware of it. We could talk for hours about this, and we will expose how there is a direct connection with many symbols that we see even today all around us. But we need to move on. Let's talk now about the connection between number 13 and the Vatican. That's right, the Vatican. We can all remember this scene from Pope John Paul's death. Can you see who's kneeling at his funeral? The last US presidents kneeled down. If this had happened 70, 80, or even 100 years ago, there would have been a great controversy. If they had kneeled down in front of a dead Pope's body like that, when the US was based on Protestantism, and they defined the papacy as the beast of the apocalypse. But obviously, things have changed quite drastically in the USA. In order for the last presidents to pay homage like that to a dead Pope's body, they are in reality paying homage to the Vatican. The true meaning is a lot more profound than one can imagine simply by looking at this photograph. It basically means that the US government is working for someone else, and that someone and what he represents, the Vatican, is laying dead right in front of them. Pay attention to these strange coincidences extracted from newspapers regarding the Pope's death. He died April 2nd, 2005. If we add up the numbers, the result is 13. This is known as numerology, ordinology, and Masonry and Kabbalistic science use it all the time. But let's keep looking at numbers. Here we have another coincidence. John Paul II died at 21:37 hours yesterday in the Vatican, not a minute earlier or later. If we add up the numbers, equals 13 again. We can also see when the new Pope was elected. Ratzinger becomes Benedict XVI and is announced at 1750. That also equals 13. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger became yesterday the 265th Pope with the name Benedict XVI. 2 plus 6 equals 8, plus 5, 13 once again. The time of the white smoke was 1750, precisely at that time. It also equals 13. And when they announced the famous sentence from the balcony, Habemus Papam, it happens to be at 1840, which equals 13. Well, they are probably coincidences, right? And yet another one, another coincidence. He is the 148th Roman bishop buried next to St. Peter. If we add up the numbers, equals 13. When we summarize the coincidences, we come up with the fact that number 13 appears 6 times. 6 times. And I say 6 times because, as we mentioned earlier, number 6 is associated with man. However, 3 times 6 means man completely separated from God. Remember this. But yet another weird coincidence. Fatima's Virgin appeared on a 13th. Not only that, but every time she appeared, it would be the 13th of different months. It is registered by Portuguese newspapers when the Virgin appeared, together with some shocking facts and many, many witnesses, but always happened to be the 13th. Why? Was it really the Virgin that appeared there? Well, if you follow the Great Deception conferences, you will see that there are appearances, but curiously, all happen to be the Virgin. Or so it seems. Let's talk now about Obama's healthcare reform for 2013 and the implementation of very cheap. Does this ring a bell? Here we have a critical article on this law where there is people who are against it and people who support it. But we also have here something of vital importance, which is the actual law with all the details. We are not going to analyze it all, obviously. It would take forever. But we can see here that together with this healthcare reform, where apparently all Americans will have access to, there is a very important clause that normally goes by unnoticed. And it makes us recur to different references that are on that clause. Numbers that lead us to other clauses. And if we analyze it all, we begin to discover that in this healthcare system that's going to be implemented in the US from March, April next year, 2013 that is, chips are also going to be implemented on people. Surprised? Did you know they have been slowly introducing it? At first they were placed on pets in case they got lost, then on livestock in case they got stolen, and it has been slowly introduced so we become familiar with it. Tattoos and piercings have become so popular nowadays. We can have something that separates us from the rest. This is the consequence of a mental programmation plan in order to adapt to having something on us that makes us different from the rest. But if we advance through the clauses, we can see it's all here. And it specifically says that this chip is not something we will have in a healthcare card, but instead, this chip is going to be injected in our bodies. Some people who are in favor claim that the good thing about this chip is that with a simple scan, they're going to access all our medical record. But keep in mind that all commercial transactions where there is money involved are going to be done electronically. So start forgetting about cash money. It is going to disappear. Everything is going to be done electronically in order to control money and be able to tax it. Governments need money, and they want to have full control of all transactions. This is the main excuse for everyone to have this chip implanted. Not only that they will also be able to track you and know your exact location at all times. Forget about privacy. According to Obama's reform, anyone can have it, regardless of their age, sex, religion, race, everyone. We will also see that this chip is going to be placed somewhere particular in the body. You can even see who is behind this product. A few years ago in Barcelona, Spain, there was a nightclub that was promoting a chip in order to pay for your drinks without cash. They were considered the VIPs. Like sheep, they would have a chip implanted because it was a very cool way of paying. This is being progressively implemented. In Colombia, they were being implanted in case of kidnappings. Here you have how this chip works. Its size, how it's scanned, how to inject it into the body with a syringe, and even the companies that are behind it. It has to be injected somewhere in our bodies where there are drastic changes in temperature in order for the lithium battery to recharge. These places happen to be either the right hand or the forehead. Why do I say this? You'll know by watching the conferences. Anyways, we have seen that Mondex is behind it. Mon equals monetary, related to money, and Dexter, is related to the right hand. Now I'm going to share a testimony from someone in Mexico who follows our conferences and has written this. I'm going to read his email word by word. Last Tuesday, I went to Rubio Pharma to buy a homeopathic medicament that I need, and they told me that they had already finished the platform we talked about. We talked about this platform where they were going to build a big, massive building. I went in there and asked the pharmaceutical about the microchip. He looked at me surprised and admitted that last Monday was the official presentation. I kept asking, very interested, and he said that they were about to start production and would be on the market by 2013. This is breaking news that will be discovered by pure chance. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. Still not under the public light. And in the Hermosillo Technical Institute, here in Hermosillo, they told me that they have a new degree in biomedical engineering, precisely because Rubio Pharma is going to grow exponentially in the area. On their web, there is no information about the chip yet. I believe it's due to the fact that they just finished constructing the facilities where it was going to be produced. That's why when I asked the pharmaceutical, he seemed surprised and told me that the previous day, the official presentation for all employees had taken place. As I was so persistent, he admitted they were about to begin production and that they'd be on the market by 2013. I also know they are experimenting with different vaccines because a diabetic person I know told me he was going to Rubio Pharma where the vaccine was going to be administered. Here you have Rubio Pharma website and associates where they are working on the chip. It's going to be implemented to every person in this world, which basically means that there is going to be a reduction in world population worldwide. It's part of the agenda for the new world order. You can start imagining how that is going to take place. Now let's concentrate in a new card game called INWO, Illuminati New World Order. It came out in 1995 and was granted first prize for table games in the USA. It's a role game, and for some reason the CIA, through George Bush's father, confiscated the game from all stores. Thank God that we managed to get our hands on one of them. Keep in mind that it's from 1995. Here we have the box. Here we go. Can you see it's real? Look at this symbol. Once again, the eye of the pyramid. The copyright and everything. 1995. so that is clear. The game is made up of different cards, and on some of them you can see a triangular shape. Pay attention, because when you see a triangular shape, it means it is related to the New World Order, who work on what appears on the card to lead the world to their plan. Because there is a plan. Here we go, about recycling, the hand of recycling. Why is there so much emphasis suddenly? Is it because otherwise the world would collapse? There are different explanations to all this, but obviously they are never going to expose the truth. Eco-warfare. Greenpeace financed by Rockefellers. Do you know that Rockefellers, together with the Rothschilds, are the richest people on the planet? The two big families that are at the top of the world's masonry and Illuminati, and also happen to work for the Vatican. They themselves cause problems, so people realize that something is needed to keep society in balance. They themselves finance the eco-warfare to protect and save the world ecologically. Is that bad? No. That's good, right? But there is a hidden objective that you'll see. They cause a problem to give a solution. Manipulation of the stock market. It goes up and down, and no one really knows why. Someone is manipulating the stock market. You can see on the balance. They totally unbalance the markets. Someone has the power. On this card, as you can see here, there is a big fish eating a smaller fish with the yen symbol. Then the sterling pound. Then the US dollar. And in front you can see a fish with the euro. We're talking 1995. Did we have euros in 1995? Someone definitely knew that the euro was coming out. In one of the conferences, we showed a document that belonged to the Vatican, where there was proof that the Vatican was behind the euro coming out. Why is that? It was obviously eating each European country's coins. Big monopolies were going to be created. As you can see, massive fusions of huge monopolies. But they also warned us that in that new world order, there is going to be an energetic crisis. When there is a big energetic crisis, and evidently they are talking about fuel, what do we think? Where is most of the production of fuel in the world? In the Middle East. Are we beginning to understand what's going on with the Arab Spring, where it seems all conflicts are simply because the youth are rebelling against their governments? Is that all? Or perhaps there are hidden interests by very powerful nations like the USA and its allies, as well as obviously as China and Russia, that want to keep all the resources to themselves. And at the same time, they work for someone else. We are going to see a card related to all this that is going to surprise you. But look at this card now, where you can see the Pope wearing the mitre. And on it, you can see the Illuminati symbol. Who does he serve in reality? God or Lucifer? In the card game appears once again the Bavarian Illuminati, and it appears with a power of 10 out of 10, the maximum. Remember that it was constituted by Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit that never resigned from being a Jesuit. Why could that be? They managed to infiltrate their people in these logias to very high positions in order to subordinate them to the Vatican. Let's talk about September 11th. Do you remember that terrorist attack, September 11th, 2001? On day 11th. Is it a coincidence? It could have been any other day. Number 11 in Kabbalistic numerology means approved by divine law. This was planned to happen on the 11th. Planned by who? God? God would have planned such a tragedy? When they talk about their divine being, they are not talking about the Christian or Jewish God. They are talking about Lucifer. What appears on this card in 1995, the attack to the World Trade Center, precisely what happened 6 years later. Do you understand now this game? Do you understand now why this game was confiscated? And what is this? The attack to the Pentagon. As you know, a very big plane crashed there. Really? Can you see a plane here? I see a fire truck, immaculate lawn, some firemen walking towards the place, and I see a building that has collapsed from the top to the bottom. But I don't see any wings or anything related to a plane. Do you? I was told that a plane crashed there. Look at what appeared in 1995. The Pentagon suffering from something. Coincidence? That's how they manipulate us. And what does this card mean now? A plane is pulling a cloud. This man in a white robe, a scientist obviously, is telling the tornado to go elsewhere. Are you aware that the climatology can be altered? It is not science fiction. It's what's called geoengineering. There are United Nations petitions asking for this not to be used as weapons. This is real, not a joke. There has been a hurricane here, an earthquake there. Is it always nature that causes this? Start thinking about it, because we are going to talk about the famous climate change. The ice melting somewhere where there is lots of it. Antarctica, right? Russia puts its flag deep in the North Pole. Why were all these powerful countries so interested recently in putting their flag precisely there? They were trying to claim it for themselves. Why? An expedition of Russian scientists to the North Pole is looking for new arguments to favor Russia in the international dispute over that recondite seabed. The 21st century El Dorado could be there due to the vast extensions of oil and gas that settle the world's energetic shortage. Do you think that the ice is only melting there naturally, while in other places ice is growing? Why? Climate change whims? Or something is being manipulated once again? From now on, we are going to see different articles about all there is down there, from gold and diamonds to oil and gas. And there was obviously a big dispute over it by big nations. United Kingdom will claim their sovereignty over Antarctica. London claims 1 million kilometers over Antarctica. Why do they want a place with so much ice? Is it for the drinks? London claims 1 million kilometers of Antarctica. Russia's allegations over Antarctica open a cascade of petitions. Oil, gas, and minerals are the objective. We can see diplomatic tensions over it. Greenland will vote if they separate from Denmark. Climate change is making possible to subtract resources from places that previously wasn't profitable. Now they have less ice. Do you get it? With less ice, the extraction is a lot easier. It's profitable. And we could go on watching articles about this matter, one after the other. They're all the same. The poles melting will draw attention to the Arctic's abundance. They all now want what's there. Do you remember this famous documentary made by Al Gore, someone that ran for US presidency but didn't make it? Then he became a climate change ambassador. this fantastic documentary called An Inconvenient Truth. Was the data in that documentary true? Now it's been proved that all that information was false. However, people started thinking that it was true. Something had to be done to change the world because whatever we did as individuals somewhere on the planet was going to have an effect somewhere else on the planet. We are slowly being globalized for one reason. The reason is they are going to implement laws for the whole world. Keep this in mind. Oh, look, what's here on another card? Al Gore hugging a tree. Can you see the sinister eyes inside the tree? Al Gore is on the same page. Climate change and reduction of the population. I mentioned it earlier. Scientists claim the planet Earth could collapse around 2025. And what needs to be done according to them? Population reduction. We are seeing scientific articles lately, and they're all saying the same. We need to reduce the world's population. How is that achieved? Telling us not to have kids, and that's it? And the ones that are alive, please die, because there are too many of us? No one wants to die, right? That reduction is going to be forced. You can start imagining what methods they are going to implement for population reduction. And if they can be controlled with a chip, a lot better. Now we're going to see a letter between Masons, where they talk about 3 world wars. Oh, wait, what a coincidence. In the card game, we can see a 3rd World War. This was the letter's author, Albert Pike, famous grade 33 Mason from the very top. Occultist, he joined the Confederate States Army during the American Civil War. Here he is with his Masonic grade 33 outfit. The letter was written to Giuseppe Mazzini, the famous Italian revolutionary. Let's analyze the letter. Albert Pike and Mazzini had correspondence between 1870 and 1871, both Satanists and grade 33 Masons. Giuseppe Mazzini, grade 33 Mason, Carbonari, Mafia founder and promoter of the Italian reunification. Albert Pike, one of the founders of the Freemasons' Scottish Rites, Kabbalist, also involved with the Ku Klux Klan, etc., etc. Look at what he wrote. The fundamental truth is too transcendental for everyone to know. This is the secrecy that always surrounds these people. Inferior grade Freemasons only will have access to the information we want to give them. And the big secrets will be strictly reserved for the big initiates, meaning that those who are at lower levels don't really know what the superiors do. They are being used. Albert Pike assured Mazzini and other top Freemasons that he had a spiritual guide that instructed him and wasn't human. That was giving him divine inspiration to achieve a one-world government. In fact, he was communicating with Satan. August 15th, 1871, this letter was written. And you can see he talks in detail about 3 world wars back in 1871. He mentions who was going to start the First World War and where, and it happened. He also talks about the Second World War, what they will use and where, and it also happened. And he talks about a 3rd World War. Do you know where? Around the Middle East. They would provoke a confrontation between Jews and Muslims, in which all nations would be affected, all of them. And that's what we are starting to see now. Start getting ready because this is coming. And look at this other card. But before, let's look at what's written above. Then citizens from all over would have to defend themselves from a revolutionary minority. would exterminate these civilian destructors, and the multitude disappointed with Christianity, whose deist spirits would be lost without direction, longing for a belief without knowing where to direct their faith. They will receive the true light through a universal manifestation of Lucifer's pure doctrine, finally revealed to the world. Someone is going to appear, simulating to be, you know who, the Messiah, Jesus. In this card from 1995, they are warning us about this. Someone will appear as a Messiah for everyone. You might be surprised by this, but if you follow our conferences, you will understand that this is no joke. And you will see it with data and proof, one after another. Here are the people that exposed this letter to the public. And now let's talk about the Arab Spring. This that happened by coincidence. And here we go, Henry Kissinger again, talking about Mubarak's toppling in Egypt. He says, this is the first act of a drama that must be done. Did you think that everything was going to end with Mubarak in power? Can you see how all these Middle Eastern countries are having problems and how Occident's hand is behind, like it's also happening in Syria? It all follows a plan. This is no joke. The Vatican and the crisis. Is the Vatican affected by the crisis? When money is for investing and not a sin, we will see here that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, right before the crisis began, sold all their shares in big companies, some of which fabricated, you know what? Preservatives. The moral leaders that were against preservatives would invest their money in preservative companies. They also had many different big company shares. Well, funny enough, they sold all of them. When? Right before the crisis began. And do you know where they invested all that cash? They invested it buying gold. If the Vatican didn't have enough gold in Switzerland, enough gold bars, and all its wealth, they still bought the gold that stopped being coin-based for international exchange. And they bought it from countries like Spain and others that thought it wasn't necessary anymore. Now with the crisis, gold prices have gone over the roof. Guess who has become wealthier during the crisis? The Vatican, obviously. And now that governments have lost all their wealth, who has all the wealth? Can you guess? The Vatican. And now that most of the first world is becoming atheists, there is going to be some moral changes, and we are going to start doing something that was done back in the day, especially in the old Europe. Do you know? Do you want to know what it is? You'll know when the right time comes. This is all done with an objective in mind. The previous week, there was a celebration in Milan, regarded as family, work, and rest day. Do you know what it was all about? Not much has been informed through the media. I want to remind you that family time has to be defended, said the Pope, threatened by all the work commitments. Isn't it true that families are unstructured with so many divorces, with kids from different relations, problems everywhere? The whole of society is unstructured, isn't it? This hasn't happened by coincidence. Don't believe it. But look at what the Pope says next. Sunday is God's and people's day, when everyone should be free. Free for their families and for God. If we defend Sunday, we defend human beings' freedom. Do any of you work on Sunday? Probably, right? Wouldn't you rather spend it with your families, relaxing? Everyone wants that the Pope pleads for that. A quick question. Is Sunday God's day? I recommend that if you can, pick up a Bible and look for the second book named Exodus, chapter 20, where you will find 10 commandments which are claimed to be given to humans by God to Moses. Do you know what the fourth commandment is? Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. Do you know that Saturday is the seventh day of the week? Most people don't know it. Even in dictionaries and encyclopedias are being modified from 1990 onwards, saying that Sunday is the seventh day of the week, whereas if you look at older encyclopedias, you will find that the seventh day of the week is Saturday, and Sunday is the first. The Pope is lying. Sunday is not God's day. According to the Bible, it's Saturday. Well, do you think something is going to happen regarding this? Yes, it will happen, even if we have to go back in time and implement Sunday as the official rest day. And someone has a special interest in this. And here we see hidden archaeological discoveries. Really? Really. The Ark of the Covenant. Do you know it? The one that the famous Indiana Jones was after? It was discovered in 1982 by this archaeologist, Ron Wyatt. What does this have to do with it? What was inside the ark? Do you know? The 10 Commandments, where it said that Saturday was the holy day and not Sunday. Why do you think this hasn't gone public? There is a reason. You will see the interview we had with Ron Wyatt's family. It is breathtaking. Don't miss out on those conferences. Israel's government keep the finding hidden. They are not the only ones, but there is only one solution. And this is the solution. You might ask yourselves, what is this? What is this statue? If you want to know what this statue is, when you get to the 6th conference, you'll understand what the solution to all is. This is our website for the big deception, www.elgranengaño.com. I suppose you have many questions regarding this subject. Here you can subscribe to receive all the information of what we are doing. And I just want to leave you with the thought that when you watch the news, there are things they will never tell you. And you can find them here. Thank you very, very much.